And now up here on EWTN Radio, it is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Jerry Usher along with Debbie Georgiani, and thank you for tuning in wherever you happen to be across these United States or anywhere around the world. We're broadcasting via a variety of media, and it's good to have you with us. Debbie, I hope you and Marty had a good weekend.
We did. It was quiet, very productive. It was good. Good weekend. But I'm excited to kick off this week with just a great topics for all our listeners to weigh in on. And we always learn something, Jerry, so I look forward to this show each and every day that we're with our listeners.
Well, yeah, and today we're going to be talking about TV commercials, and this idea was kind of spawned in my mind here, in part because, of course, the Super Bowl is coming up. We had the conference championship games yesterday, and so that has been decided. We now have 2 weeks of nonstop talking on TV to get ready for about a 3-hour game. But, of course, Debbie, as we know, within that game, it's become as much about the commercials as anything. And so I thought we'd have a conversation with our listeners about how individuals, couples, families deal with the onslaught of commercials that are on television nowadays, especially so many of them, Debbie, that are really quite offensive and you just wouldn't want to see as an adult, let alone let your kids see them.
Definitely has some hidden agendas to the commercials, that's for sure, Jerry. So we want to hear what our listeners have to say about this. This is a great topic. I know it's a holiday today, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and you may be doing some other things today, but we'd like for you to take a moment and share your wisdom on this topic. Please call in at 1-833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Many of our listeners are off today, Jerry, because of the holidays, so
that's right.
We may have a different group listening, which would be fascinating as well. So we'd like to hear from you. Remember, you drive the show, so don't sit this out. We want to hear what you have to say about this. The question is, do you somehow avoid watching the commercials on TV?
Yeah. I'm going to share in a few minutes what I do with that, but I certainly want to, again, encourage those of you who are listening to call in and share your take on this. The number, again, is 833-288-3986 or 833-288-EWTN. And basically, you know, Debbie, I've been in media now for 39 years. And, you know, there was a time when there were standards of decency for TV commercials. I think there still are, but I think they've been loosened a little bit. And let's face it, there's no question that many advertisers definitely push the limits. And so, really, it's almost become an occasion. Well, it has become an occasion of sin. Let's face it; it's become an occasion of sin sometimes to sit through the commercials on certain broadcasts. Now, Debbie, as you know, the advertisements are usually geared toward whatever the day part audience is going to be. So, you know, during the middle of the day, you've got the soap opera, so you have, you know, laundry detergent and fabric softener and makeup and stuff like that. But during a sports event, it could be quite different, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely well thought out, well planned. You know, Tom Peterson, who is the founder of Virtue Media and Catholics Come Home, his background is in advertising, Jerry, and he used to give talks. In fact, I had him come speak to our junior high and high schoolers about this exact subject of how media is, the advertisers are really, they plan out how they can really infiltrate your life, you know, come into your life and kind of change the way you think about things, the way you desire things. It's very interesting, well, very methodical. And actually, you know, Jerry, you said something about standards of decency. I'm going to go out there on a limb and just say, I think that's all flown out the window right now. I tell you, the things that I watch on TV, there's nothing decent about it.
Well, I agree with you, yeah, and there are some, you know, in fact, some advertisers, some corporations want to take the high road, and they'll use events like the Super Bowl to do that, and they'll put out very, very family-friendly commercials once in a while, but I agree with you. I think for the most part, and what does this say about us? This is what I'd love to hear from some of you who are listening. What do you think this says about our culture that advertisers, companies, corporations, businesses have to kind of stoop to a certain, level in order to kind of get people's interest and make them watch and make them buy their product, Debbie? I mean, what does this say about us? It's really kind of a sad testimony, I think.
Yeah. See, I thought you were going to go on the angle that how the subliminal messages of commercials, because have you ever noticed that there's always these amazing food fests and feasts at 9 and 10 o'clock at night about pizzas and hamburgers and everything. And then all of a sudden you find yourself at 11 o'clock at night thinking, I need to have a pizza right now. and and it's so strange how it works, but it does play on the mind, and it really does. I mean, they know what they're doing. And so that's the question we're asking today. Do you somehow avoid watching the commercials on TV? And tell us why. Tell us all about it. We want to know what your viewing habits are when it comes to the TV, especially when children are in the room. That's very important. So let's talk about that. Here's the number: 1-833-288 EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Phone lines are starting to light up, and that means that you have something to say about this topic. So, Jerry, I'm glad you put it on the show calendar.
Well, and here's what I do. I mean, for most shows that I watch, I actually tape and watch later. So that makes it very, very easy just to kind of fast forward through the commercials. You can watch an entire 3-hour-plus football game in about, 90 minutes. So it makes it convenient. But, I tape the shows and fast forward through them. Some people choose to, I guess, mute the TV, change the channels. We're really just asking what you do. I mean, are you even on guard about this? Maybe this is the first time you've thought about this particular topic in your family, and maybe you're very interested and curious to see what people are going to say. So I'm looking forward, Debbie, as always, to the takes of our listeners.
You know, I remember, I'm thinking back to some of the talks that Tom Peterson used to do with my high schoolers. And you know what? I'll tell you what, Jerry, I think we need to guard our eyes. We really need to watch what we see on the commercials, because we can never take those images out of our heads. And I think it's really important that we are aware of what's going on, because they're behind the scenes figuring out what is going to attract us and what is going to hook us. Okay, we've got to do the same at being aware and realize that we can turn that off, or like you do, Jerry, you tape it and then you fast forward through the commercials or whatever. So it's very important that we do have this conversation. I think it has some good merit, and we'd like you to weigh in on this. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986.
Take two with Jerry and Debbie here on EWTN Radio. The show team is on duty as well. We've got actually Jeff Burson in for Rich Jesse today producing the program. Ryan Penny is screening the calls, and the whole EWTN team helping out. So we appreciate you being with us here, and we're going to get to your calls. We'll start with Bob in Maryland here in just a minute. He is tuned into Guadalupe Radio Network, talking about what you do to avoid, even if you do avoid watching the commercials on TV. 833-288-3986. We'll get you on the program.
We're so glad you're with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're asking the question today: do you somehow avoid watching the commercials on TV? So share with us your viewing habits. We'd love to learn from you. Maybe you have some great tools, advice, or some wisdom on this that can help all of us and our families. Just real quickly, Jerry, I must mention our dear friend Teresa Tomeo, Catholic Connection, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Folks, I know you have to have heard of Catholic Connection. If you haven't, please check it out. 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Teresa Tomeo does a phenomenal job sharing what's going on, current events, the news. She's a great journalist, a great reporter. I just love listening to Teresa. You get the straight scoop from Teresa, 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Okay, again, the phone number 833-288-3986, 833-288-EWTN. We're talking today about how you handle the commercials on TV. And Debbie, I don't know, how much TV do you and Marty watch? I've been over at your house. I don't think you two watch a whole lot of TV. I haven't noticed.
We don't.
Yeah.
We're very particular. We choose what we want to watch. We love watching the History Channel, and we absolutely are just obsessed about real life stories. The fictional stuff, Jerry, no, we really just don't get into that much. I mean, we do watch the news. I definitely have EWTN on, that's for sure. And but I will tell you, sometimes at night, if I've got a lot on my mind or something, I will have the TV on in the background. And that's when it always happens, Jerry. You see those delicious pizza commercials, or I don't even eat hamburgers, but you see these hamburger commercials, and all of a sudden you have this, overwhelming desire to go have some fast food. I mean, it really is very interesting how it does play on the mind. And I think it's important that we do discuss this, Jerry, just so that we're aware of what is going on out there and what they want for us to think. And, we have our own free will, and this is a good discussion. So I'm happy that we're having it.
Well, and just so you know, if you're calling in, we're having a little bit of a problem. We're working that out with the phone. So keep dialing 833-288-3986. And Ryan is doing a great job, and Mike is helping him out there. And so we will get to your calls as soon as we possibly can. I mentioned, Debbie, that I've been in the media business for 39 years. And so, I go back at least, what is that, a generation? Don't say two, please.
It's a lot.
Please don't say two generations.
It's a lifetime.
Yeah, it's a lifetime. And, I can remember a time when, there goes the phone. The phones are ringing here at the, people,
Is this a pledge drive?
Where I'm doing the broadcast. I can just remember a time when, it was just like things were so much more pure and wholesome and, family friendly, and you didn't have to worry about these kinds of things. And I'm just kind of wondering when that line was crossed. And I'm thinking, it had to be, well, gosh, it probably goes back, good 15 or 20 years when it seems that line was crossed. And then there was, all those struggles, with their different groups. You mentioned Tom Peterson's group, and there's Morality in Media. And as much of a fight as those people of goodwill put up, it just seems like, the rot wins out. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing too, Jerry, is that it's so easy when you have something wholesome on TV, whether it's a commercial or a show, okay, and something it feels good, it's heartwarming, it has some moral depth to it. You can intertwine something of a hidden agenda very easily because you have that person hooked. You have that person's heart. They're very much interested in it. They want to know the outcome. People like feel-good stories. And I've noticed it recently. My husband and I went to go see a very mild-mannered, really children's movie a couple weeks ago, and in the midst of the storyline, the plot of the movie, there was this very overt attempt to convince us that same-sex marriage was okay. And it was in the midst of this very feel-good. It was about a dog, actually, a dog finding their way home. And in the midst of that, so you have the audience hooked. They want this dog to be able to go home to its owner. And then here was this agenda that was laid out for us that yes, it's okay to have same-sex unions. And I thought it was very methodically planned out, but it really robbed, I think, the innocence of those that were viewing, because we were all viewing it coming from just a beautiful, heart sense of how wonderful it is for a dog and their owner, and then for them to be reunited. And then here was this underlying agenda that was being played forth. Now that was in a movie, but it happens in commercials and everything, Jerry. And wouldn't you agree that really does rob our innocence, especially the children who are watching, thinking that everything is safe to watch, and those visual images now are imprinted in their brains.
Yeah, what is it? It said the eyes are the window of the soul, or to the soul. So yeah, what goes in the eyes, and then of course enters the imagination, and then the imagination turns to thoughts, and thoughts turn to actions, and actions turn to habits, and the whole thing just goes spiraling out of control sometimes. So, I think we're ready to find out what some of our listeners have to say. Here's the number again, talking about what do you do with TV commercials? Do you watch them? Do you critique them? Do you fast forward through them, change the channel, turn mute the TV? 833-288-3986. Okay, Debbie, ready? I want to start with June.
Yeah, June in South Charleston, West Virginia on St. Paul Radio. Hi, June. Thank you for being first up on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate your broadcast so much.
Thank you. So what's your take on this, June?
Well, we channel surf, of course, to not be sitting ducks to all the influx that you're bombarded with. But I'm very much aware, and you're singing my song about protecting the innocence of the young children. And as the Bible says, the helmet is a breastplate of salvation. And as a knight would wear a helmet, it also protected the eyes and the ears. And since Satan is a roaring lion coming through our airwaves, we very much need to protect what our children are hearing and seeing that goes down into their spirit and robs them of this beautiful innocence where the Holy Ghost can come in and tenderly woo them to himself.
Yeah, and that word you just used there, June, tenderly, I think this is the key. We hear that Satan comes as an angel of light, and he is not going to show up and ring your doorbell with his pitchfork in his hands and his tail kind of wafting up in the air behind him, and his horns and so forth. I'm just curious, June, did you raise kids? Do you have grandkids? I mean, do you have was there your own precious little souls in your life that you really care about in this regard?
Oh, yes, and I also taught at a Christian school, so I've always been involved with children from the babysitting age. I was started at 12 with watching children and just being aware of what influences them and how to mold them into a Christ-like spirit and with an appetite and a hunger for the things of Jesus.
Right. Well, God bless you, June. You have really you basically you resort to you just kind of turn the channel. What if it's a show that you really I don't know if you have any shows that you really love or that you really like to watch or look forward to, but do you if that's the case, do you just kind of turn away and you figure give it about 2 minutes and you go back, or how do you handle that?
No, I just change the channel, especially if there are young people around. But you're going to laugh, but I do like Petticoat Junction and Andy Griffith's show and the things that are for a family value oriented, and I try to influence the young parents that whenever the Lord opens a door, that to get these, even the libraries have the old DVDs they can play for their children that are so much better, a much better influence for them than what's on our cultural television now.
Wow. Well, thank you, June, for weighing in on this, and thank you for everything you've done to help those young minds. It's so true. We must protect. I wrote down. The hearing, the seeing.
Yeah.
We must protect them. It's very important, and we can do that. We have the means to do that. Nobody's forcing us to watch these things, right, June? So
right.
So we do have our free will, and that's very important that we exercise that. Thank you so much. God bless you for being first up on Take Two. We appreciate it, and thank you for the kind words, and we hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Keep on keeping on, and God bless you and your station.
Thank you, June. It's interesting, Deb. I just did an internet search do a little bit more research, and I did a Google search for standards of decency in commercials on TV, and the first hit that came up was our website for the show today.
Are you kidding me? Really?
I'm not kidding. Yeah.
No
I don't know what that's
to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
All right, where are we going next?
We're going to Paul, and Paul is in Albany, New York. And Jerry, you do Latin so much better than me. Tell me the radio station he's listening to.
He's listening to WOPG, Pax et Bonum, Peace and Good Radio in Albany. Hi, Paul.
Hey, guys. Hey, Hey, words of peace and goodness.
Peace and goodness, yep.
Yeah. God bless you folks. You do a wonderful job. I've listened to EWTN on TV for many years and now radio, you guys, for quite a while. God bless you for, spreading the truth.
Thank you,
Paul.
Now, before I want to say anything, I know you were saying earlier that devil masquerades as an angel of light, and he's also a master of division, as I know you guys know. What bugs me about the commercials is years ago now, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, it seems like these repetitive commercials were started by the Japanese and Korean automobile companies. You know how they'd had the same commercial right after the same commercial, as if it's like we have Alzheimer's or brain damage. It's an insult to our intelligence, not to mention our common sense. You know what I mean? There's no reason for that to have the same commercial. One commercial away from that commercial that they just aired, just to, you know what I mean, to drive you nuts.
Right.
Then, for instance, there's a commercial now. It's even gotten worse now with those the Asian car companies. Is Honda Acura has a devil commercial. They use that devil song by the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
The Rolling Stones. I used to listen to them years ago, but I never understood that song. Now I understand it. I mean, I've understood it for quite a while. But it's actually about the devil speaking. Is that actually the devil speaking during the song, and then Honda, who makes Acura, is using that song for the commercial to buy an Acura.
Right.
I mean, how bold can they get,
Well, you're talking about a real important aspect of this, Paul. What you're talking about here really gets into kind of how the commercials are produced. I mean, how they're written. First of all, it starts with the corporation, whatever campaign that they want to run, the target audience. And then, of course, there are different elements to this. Those who have been in the media will know this. You've got the writing of the copy, the script. You've got the shooting of it. You've got the music that's chosen, the images that are chosen, how fast, how quick the cuts are, and all of this stuff. And every single element. Yeah, every single element, though.
Use that devil in his song.
Right.
I mean, it's all about him. To try to get him to buy a car. I mean, they've gotten so bold, and they know they got their foot in the door here. And don't forget, the devil does masquerade as an angel of light. We all think they're blessing those cars, and I'm sure they are in many ways. But what are we sacrificing in the long run by, he's his master of division. He's got the country divided between, the American automobiles going out of business because of the Asian cars, and that's only one of the divisions, and the way they operate, the way they got where they're at, is by putting those commercials. One way is by, doing things like that, putting those commercials right after each other, which is very, years ago you wouldn't even be allowed to do that.
Right, and Paul, what you're talking about here, this kind of in-your-face music, that kind of promotes the devil or evil or Satan or whatever. Debbie, this is a key point here, and it's chosen very, very deliberately. And the fact that this says a lot about our culture too. I think we've simply lost sight of the reality of evil, the reality of the devil, or people just kind of laugh at it. So when this is put out there by whatever company it happens to be, and many of them do that, they're banking on the fact that people are not going to be turned off or offended by that.
Right. Or how about this? They're banking on the fact that it's become acceptable. When you start to have these things over and over again played for you, and you see these things or you hear these things, you start to just accept them as it's just part of life, which is really quite scary. I mean, this is very, very, very interesting what Paul brings up. Paul, thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words when you started off, when we answered your call, and thank you for waiting and sharing your experience and your wisdom on this. It really does help us, and it shapes the conversation well. But Jerry, I'm starting to get, are you getting a little nervous? I'm getting nervous for our youth because, they've got this is tough. I mean, it's a much different world. When we were growing up, it was, Andy Griffith and I Love Lucy and all sorts of mild-mannered things. And like right. Tracy, our friend, just texted and she said, bring back the Andy Griffith show. My girls that are age 11 love that show. I mean, we really do want back to, the wholesome stuff, Jerry.
Well, this gets down to even a more, I think, foundational question, and that is, our TV, the amount of TV consumption in our lives. Because there are studies done, Debbie, that show, the TV is on in the average household, what is it, 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
Right.
And many parents use the TV as kind of a babysitter or, some kind of distraction for their kids. So maybe even a more foundational question is, are we watching too much TV? Now, of course, we got EWTN and other very wholesome, healthy choices, spiritual, faith-filled choices, but at the same time, man, my TV service probably has, I don't even know how many channels, probably 500, 600 channels, and I watch maybe 3 of them. So, it's a good conversation we're having. Mike and Patricia, you're going to be next. And we have some good social media, good emails coming in on this from John. We're going to find out what John has to say. Maria, Jane, and others, take 2 at EWTN.com if you'd like to weigh in on this. How do you deal with the commercials on television?
Okay, we're asking the question today on Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie. Do you somehow avoid watching the commercials on TV? And tell us why you do that, if you do avoid them. I just wanted to share real quickly, Mike, hold on, because Mike has media experience, and we want to get to him in just a second. But I just wanted to share this because social media comments are coming in fast and furiously, and that's a good thing. That means you have a lot to say about this. But just wanted to share Shannon in YouTube. It just cracks me up. Shannon, I'm waving to you on YouTube. Shannon says, every commercial has something to do with trying to indoctrinate everyone to accepting gay marriage and relationships. I still use commercials as a time to take a restroom break. There you go, Jerry.
I think that's an age-old tradition.
Take your restroom breaks during the commercials?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hear what Mike has to say. Mike's in Long Island, New York, listening on the EWTN app. Hi, Mike. Thanks for waiting, and welcome to Take 2.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How are you today?
Pretty well, Mike. How about you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I do have a career in advertising, media sales, so I kind of get what's going on. I mean, we've always known that sex sells, and that's been something that's been exploited for a very long time. But now what's happening is you're also seeing people try to make political statements through their advertising, and they're not doing it, for any other reason, but they think that it will help them sell their product. And the problem is that people feel, I guess, helpless, or they feel like there's nothing that they can do about it, but there actually is. I mean, the only thing that these major corporations really care about is revenue, right? So the only way to combat this and to let them know that what they're exposing our children to is unacceptable is to hit them in the wallet where it hurts. And people need to take the time to contact these companies, to boycott their products, to let them know that, what they're exposing our kids to is not acceptable, and we will not support their companies and their products if they continue to try to do that.
Mike, I'm glad you said that because, I think we do feel helpless. I think we feel like there's this big media entity out there that's governing everything and controlling everything. But you're right. Our voices need to be heard. We need to contact these organizations and these businesses and say, we're done. We're not buying your products. We take offense to what you're saying. And I agree with you. I mean, I've actually seen and heard a lot of these political statements that are just being, kind of subtly woven into the message, if you will, and also even some attacks on religious beliefs as well, which is really very. Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but I'm glad you said that to empower us to say something and to say, we're done. We're not going to buy your products then if that's what you're going to do. But see, the problem is, Mike, unfortunately, we as Catholic Christians, we don't really have a great track record, if you will, of standing together and doing this together. And that's why, it's important that we have shows like this. So it allows us all to say, hey, it's time we stand up. We know what our Christian values are and our principles are. And we have to make sure we practice that in all we do and say. And so, this was very good. And you coming from media background, I think that's really helpful because it allows us to know kind of the behind the scenes of what's really happening. But Mike,
what I think we don't realize, I think what we don't realize is the buying power that we have as a church in the United States or even worldwide, and the influence that we can have if we got together and stood up against this culture that's being created.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. And obviously, boycotts have been organized and succeeded to a greater or lesser degree. But just back to your original point, Mike, I think we've just been conditioned to believe that whatever we see on TV, is gospel. It's true. Take the network newscasts, for example, and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't watch any of the network news, as I've said on this program before. But I think that people we're just passive, And maybe Debbie and Mike, another factor is critical thinking. Debbie, we talked about that before on this show. Have we lost the art of being able to think critically, look at something and say, is this something I want to consume? Is this something that is wholesome? Is it healthy? Is it going to do me good? Is it going to do me harm? I think people have maybe either lost or abandoned that ability.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, you guys are kind of focusing on electronic media or at least television, but it's really across all mediums. I mean, it's print and it's direct mail and it's radio, it's television, it's the internet, it's social media, it's digital media. I mean, it's, they're using all of this to send these messages and not only are they sending these messages, but they're also, they don't mind in a lot of cases if they get negative feedback. Sometimes the ad is designed for shock value to get people to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But again, and they like that. I think, but when their commercial is shown for free on a cable news channel because people find it offensive, they like that because it's bringing more attention to them. Right. So really the only way to do anything about it is to really take the time to contact the corporation and say, hey, listen, I'm finished with you. I'm, as long as you continue to perpetuate these types of values, you've lost me as a customer.
Right. And the more they hear that, then maybe they'll go back to that round table and say, hey, maybe we better take a different approach. Before we let you go, Mike, just real quickly, because you were just talking about, positive, feedback that could come back to them from these ads or negative feedback in any which way you look at it. It draws attention to their company or whatever. And then the bottom line is maybe more revenue or something of that nature. Mike, I'm just curious, is there like a round table of 6 to 12 people that sit around and say, and they kind of combine together and they figure out what is going to be the best thing to put out there for the public? I mean, is this all?
Absolutely. It is. It's not just. I'm sorry. It's not just 6 or 8 people. They do focus groups, and they do studies, and a lot of the larger advertisers go through advertising agencies who do that type of legwork for them, and they think that they are, and they're not doing it based on what they think the public wants. They're doing it based upon what they feel will ultimately generate the most in sales revenue, period. So they don't care what the result of these focus groups are. What they care about is ultimately how much more money they're going to make by employing a specific marketing strategy. And that's it. So if we were to reinforce to them, hey, you'll get more of my money by, conveying a positive message, they will go that way because that's what they care about. Most of these companies, some of them are trying to make their own political statements for the sake of their own, ideology, but most of them really all they care about is bottom line, because a lot of these are public companies who care about their stockholders and they want their stock prices to flourish, and that's their culture, that's where they live, and that's what they base all of their decisions on. It's not 3 or 4 people sitting in a conference room. They're trying to it's mass appeal. They're trying to increase their sales, and they're taking any road they feel will get them there.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not some guy in a Madison Avenue office who wakes up one morning and says, "Hey, it'd be a really cool TV campaign." No, this is well thought out methodically. It's researched. Everything is just fine tuned. So we have to believe, Debbie, I think at the end of the day, we're like laboratory mice, for not just in TV advertising, but in a lot of different areas. I mean, they are well thought out, researched, planned, and implemented, and we're the ones who either take that bait in the hook or not. So it's really up to us at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I like what Mike has to say. We have to use our voices, and we have to use our buying abilities to either refrain from supporting this kind of effort, or we need to speak up. I love that, Mike. Thank you so much for just reminding us that we do have a voice and we can do something about it. So I thought that was a great call.
Yeah, great call, Mike. Thank you. Patricia, we're going to get to you next. Here's the phone number. Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie talking today about how we avoid, or maybe not. Maybe we haven't taken this too much into consideration, but what do you do with the commercials on TV? And, this is we're not out to try and, bring down any corporations here with this program or anything, just trying to, guard our eyes, our minds, our hearts, our souls, things like that. 833-288-3986. A bunch of email and social media, Debbie. Maybe we can get to a few of those.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to that right now. Let's see. Oh, you want to go? You want to go first?
Yeah, well, John, okay. Our regular
John.
listener, John, says, "Good afternoon. I'm out driving today for Uber, and I wanted to weigh in on this." He said, "I would definitely say that the secular media have an agenda in pushing sex, drugs, and other things that tempt us further away from God. I'm fortunate enough to have Hulu and Netflix, so I'm not as exposed to those things. However, I still have secular radio at times, and you encounter the exact same things on there. The advertisers are targeting us and our youth for their own agenda," as Mike was saying. He says we all have to remember to remain vigilant with God, and to remember we can always turn it off. God bless you both. That's from John.
Yep. Thank you, John, so very, very much. Okay, and Karen says, "I believe that in order to break the desire with the inappropriate commercials is to create something just as intense but spiritually appropriate. There has to be a momentum shift, like in a football game created by the Holy Spirit. I know that pretty much the choir is listening to this show. I'm part of it, but I'm also a screenwriter too. And I know what we are taught as writers. You get emails from me on my day. Okay. So share with that a little bit.
On her day job.
On her day job. Okay. Share a little bit more what Karen is saying here. So Karen is saying we need to have a momentum shift, Jerry, and change this around. So we need to start working towards a more Holy Spirit driven viewing base that we get to look at, correct?
Yeah, and prayer is the way to get that going. So, Karen, a good suggestion there, and one that we should all take into account. In fact, Debbie, speaking of prayer, Jane says, "Hi, Jerry and Debbie. I mute the commercial, close my eyes, and pray a decade of the rosary." She says, "I may not get back to the show before 5 minutes, and commercials are 2 minutes, I think. It is worth it to me to give thanksgiving or pray for some important intention and miss 3 minutes of the show. Most shows aren't worth watching anyway." She says, "I might not open my eyes, but I continue praying if the Spirit calls me to linger in prayer." And she says she has 2 sons, one a faithful Catholic, the other agnostic, yet they both married women who refuse to have TV in the home. Their children might see a movie, but will never see TV commercials. That's from Jane.
See, that's the momentum shift we need back to the Holy Spirit. And Maria says she stopped watching secular TV altogether because of the ads. They're not in line with the church. She only has EWTN on TV and radio. Way to go, Maria. That's what we want to hear, right, Jerry?
Yeah. Okay, back to your calls here. Patricia, thanks for your patience listening on St. Gabriel Radio in Columbus, the Columbus area. Hi, Patricia. She's in Troy, Ohio. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, thank you. Many years ago, I noticed that even if we were trying to watch a wholesome show on TV, like Little House in the Prairie, we were being subjected to the very worst outtakes of the very worst shows that we would have never had on as commercials for other TV programs. 3 people that I knew encouraged me to get rid of the television altogether, which seemed kind of hard to do because television is just so ubiquitous. However, I did decide to get rid of it 5 years ago. I felt like I could not control being exposed to this unholy content and programming and in commercials. I couldn't mute it fast enough. It was just unrelenting and getting noticeably worse by the month. And my television actually froze while EWTN was on. And the cable TV told me I'd have to come in and get a box. And I said, "No, you're going to come over here. You're going to take this out of my house because I'm through." And about 3 people called up and tried to talk me into keeping the television. I was a very low subscriber with the 20 channels, but nevertheless, I had 3 people calling me up trying to talk me in to keeping it, and they wanted an exit interview, and I said, "Well, your content is terrible. The commercials are awful, and you're starting to promote homosexuality in several programs," and they found that quite offensive that I made that remark. Having gotten rid of the television 5 years ago, I could say that it was remarkably easy to do. I made the transition reading one book, and what I noticed is the home was just so much more peaceful. It was just like a sanctuary without this bombardment of this television.
Wow. Well, Patricia, you have done what I imagine a lot of people have done, and God bless you for that. And it's unfortunate that you aren't able to get EWTN on television anymore. But like you said, your comments to the provider were that most of the stuff was just junk or garbage or whatever you said. And it's interesting because I typed over Debbie and I, as you may know, when we do the show, we're in different locations. And as you were talking, and when you said the 3 people called you, I typed over a note to Debbie. I said, "And they offered her premium channels, I bet." See, So, so these are they want you to. They and this isn't about the program providers per se, but this is what they want. Obviously they need the show. They need subscribers, Debbie. It's all about subscribers, so that the shows are on, so that the advertisers will pay. I mean, it's just this chain of kind of a food
revenue.
Yeah, like a food chain. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Patricia, thank God for the beautiful work that the folks are doing at St. Gabriel Radio, because they're able to bring you EWTN on your local listening area. And I think that's wonderful. So you have that, and that's great. But I love the way you said you started reading, more books and things of that nature. I mean, just look how your life has expanded in such a beautiful way from the things that you chose to read and to fill your mind with, rather than these things that are coming at you, like you said, and I wrote it down. You couldn't mute it fast enough. So you're trying to get it away from you. You're trying to reject all these things coming at you that are going to infiltrate your mind and penetrate even your spirit, because that's what they want for it to do to all of us. And you couldn't get away from it fast enough. So what did you do? You took an extreme approach, and I think it's awesome. It sounds like it has benefited you greatly. And, I think it's time I think all of us are become very selective on what we choose to keep on our television. For me, I have to keep EWTN television. I told my cable company that's the one channel that I'm definitely having. The rest, whatever, but I'm definitely want to keep that. But I do think that that's very important, that we use our free will to benefit us. And it sounds like it did that for you. Anything else you want to encourage others who are maybe kind of on the fence and thinking that this is a little bit too extreme of a move? What would you say to them?
I would just say that it's just so much more important to cultivate your own family relationships than to sit around and watch made-up shows about made-up families, made-up stories. That the time would be so. I just wonder how many lost conversations have there been to the television set, and I would just encourage people to play baseball instead of watch baseball on TV, and network with your little neighborhood league, and your life just seems so much more real when you're participating in it rather than being an observer watching television shows.
Right. Thank you, Patricia, for that call and that great input. We appreciate it very, very much. As I mentioned, Debbie, for those who weren't tuned in last week, I was visiting a priest friend of mine for the last several days in rural southeastern Oregon, a beautiful, lovely town of Jordan Valley, actually. Maybe a couple hundred people live here. And there's no cell phone service. And so it's amazing. And Father doesn't have TV in the rectory or internet or anything. So I went a little bit stir crazy, I have to admit, but it was good. It was like a retreat. But the point being, I've witnessed, Debbie, these past several days what Patricia is talking about. I've met so many of the young kids. There's been Mass every day, and there was a funeral, and we were over at a family's house for dinner. And it's just you see, it's almost like life the way it almost should be, as so many of us, just have so many stimuli coming at us all the time that, it just kind of it influences us, in one way or the other, without a doubt.
Jerry, what you did say to me when you were able to check in and call in, you said that these children that you encountered who live in the town, they had a beautiful light in their eyes, and they connected with you eye to eye, and so it was really a beautiful, and you. So that's a sign of life, life. They're living it. They're doing what Patricia's saying. They're out there in the community playing baseball, climbing trees, building forts, doing all the things we used to do as children.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, one of the alternatives to having a satellite provider for your TV or a cable provider is Amazon Fire TV and Roku. Those are some of the ways that you can get EWTN television. So keep that in mind. With technology advancing, friends, there are so many other ways. We don't have to sign up for the $150 a month, 700 channel mega subscription, that most of us aren't going to watch anyway, but you can get EWTN on Amazon Fire TV and Roku and other outlets as well. Okay, do we have time for Chris?
Let's go to Chris. And we still have social media coming in, which is great. Chris in Cincinnati, Ohio, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Chris. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. We do not watch TV in our house. we had TV for a few years when we were raising our children, but we basically did without it. There used to be a song, I think it was by Frank Zappa, and one of the songs he says, "The slime coming out of your TV set," and we always kind of reference that, and that's basically what I think it is. It's very negative influences, even years ago, 20, 30 years ago, and it just has gotten worse since then. And it really shocks me when I go to somebody's house and I watch and I see ads and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is really bad. And the shows that are on, it's just useless. And it really does. I think it desensitizes you to what your faith and your morals. I think one time I was listening to a show on EWTN, and the father gave an example. His children wanted to do something, and he said, well, okay, no, you can't do that. And they're like, well, it's just this little thing. We just want to, it was something they wouldn't normally do. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to make you brownies. And so he made brownies, and he said, there's a little bit of poop in the brownies, but you can't see it. It's not in there. And they're like, oh, Dad, that's really gross. And he says, well, you can eat it. You can't see it. And they were totally grossed out, but it made the point. It's like you just let a little bit of something in, and you get desensitized to it, and then it, you let a little more in, and then you start thinking a different way, and
then it becomes
really,
acceptable.
Yes, it does. And then you accept it. And so today, one of my children, I know he doesn't watch TV at all, and the other one, I don't think he watches it either. So
okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Have they still kept those viewing habits? So it sounds okay. Yes. Great, Chris. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. That's a great perspective on this, because you lived it. This is how you conducted your household, and this is the effects on your children. And this is good. This is what we need to hear as there's a lot of young families listening to the show and want to know how to possibly raise their children in a wholesome way. So thank you, Chris. God bless you for that. Jerry?
Yeah, appreciate the call, Chris. God bless you. Have a blessed day. Yeah, we got some more social media. We don't dare take any other calls because we just have a minute or two left. But on Facebook, Carrie says it's sick how the gay agenda has infiltrated TV, movies, etc. Let's see. Sarah says there is definitely a lot of propaganda in commercials as well as in many programs. Debbie, are you on the...
I'm actually looking at some other... Yeah, keep going because I got some other ones coming in pretty fast.
Well, here this is interesting. Lulu says it's not just TV. They insert these commercials in the kids' YouTube video section, but showing adult commercials during breaks. Sneaky. That's from Lulu. She was watching on YouTube today.
Mm-hmm. And then here comes a great comment just came in. DVRs have changed my life. This is what Marianne says. I now have control of what and when I watch. You pick out the good things you like in everything. See, that's true. You do have control.
Yeah, and Seth, watching on Facebook, says, WWJW, what would Jesus watch? Yeah, and Joyce says there are many outlets to view programming. As networks are losing viewers, they are losing revenue. Money talks. And Debbie, of course, people can comment at take2show.com. And we did get a comment there on the website, and it's from Sherry. Sherry's listening today. She says, hi, Jerry and Debbie. Thank you for your show. A couple of years ago, we invited our priest to a gathering to watch the Super Bowl. I was very moved to see him physically turn his face away from the screen when a suggestive ad came on. It set a great example for us to turn away from evil. And that's from Sherry.
Wow. Thanks, you guys. This was a great discussion. Tomorrow, we got another show planned for you. What dangers do your kids face that you didn't? Well, we kind of touched on that today, but we'll keep that going tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. You can always email us, take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. But until tomorrow, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.